Hi, everyone. We are the healthcare department team. We have myself from workers' compensation, Rajat Bhardwaj. Hi, how are you? James, you want to introduce yourself? Mike?
Sure. Hi, this is James Greenspan. I'm the managing attorney in the commercial insurance department at Callagy Law.
Hi, my name is Michael Bittoni. I am Callagy, one of Callagy's New York NoFault attorneys.
Right, so I guess we wanted to check in with our clients, kind of give them an update of what's going on with our respective departments, and also kind of share with them what we've been up to, how we're keeping sane during the quarantine. So I'll go first. Like I said, I'm part of the workers' compensation team, and we are trucking along despite the challenges that COVID-19 is bringing. Our team is doing everything we can to stay ahead of the curve, be innovative, and I feel really grateful for the team that we have. Everyone from the staff member to the settling team to the attorneys are all thinking of innovative ways to get around the challenges that COVID-19 might pose, and sort of the changes that we're seeing temporarily in the court system and how some of these cases are resolved. I'll give a brief update of what's going on with the court system. I know Mike and James also want to share with you all how their court systems are being affected by COVID-19. In workers' compensation, the court is open only virtually, and they're only seeing limited cases. So those are more med and temp cases having to do with the petitioner. However, they are open to conferencing, even medical provider claims in certain instances. So the courts remain open. We are looking for innovative ways to negotiate these claims. We're noticing that a lot of our adversaries are more willing than ever before to negotiate some of these claims with us. And we're taking every opportunity to innovate, like I said. So some of our conferences have turned into Zoom telephone conferences. We're doing everything we can to keep pushing our settlements through. January was a landmark month for us. February was a landmark month for us. We have a high standard, right? So we settled more than $20 million last year for providers, and we want to keep on that trajectory. So yeah, January was a success, February was a success. March saw some challenges, but still a very, very strong month, and we're hoping the same for the upcoming months. So do you guys want to share a little bit about your departments and how the CI courts have been affected by this, as well as the workers' comp in New York?
Yeah, sure. I'll jump in next. Hi again, this is James from commercial insurance at Callagy Law. So commercial insurance at Callagy, at least, is made up largely of two different sections. The first is the New Jersey Surprise Bill law that was passed in 2018, calls for arbitrations of emergency or inadvertent surprise bills. So that's a large part of what I handle. And those are done via arbitration with Maximus in the state of New Jersey. And Maximus is up and running. They're open for business. They're accepting new arbitrations. They're still issuing decisions from cases that we had previously filed. So it's pretty much the status quo there. The people that I've been in touch with, they're all, safely tucked away and working at home and everything. So I'm happy to say that there's some smooth sailing there, which is, as important, I would say, as it's ever been, because it's providing a good cash flow for our clients, because they can continue to depend on the revenue stream that has built over the last year plus in that space. In terms of the other part of CI, which is more of the litigation-based side of it, which is in state court and federal court, that unfortunately I can't be as optimistic about. That has really hit some snags. We were talking offline a little bit before the call went live about some of the challenges that we've seen there and some motions and things that were scheduled and how they've been just postponed for the foreseeable future. We do hope and expect at some point for the courts to be able to have some virtual conferencing, like Raj was mentioning in workers' comp. They're doing some Zoom things. I think the superior courts are a little less flexible so far in adjusting to that. I know they're working on, how do they get transcripts of things like a Zoom conference or a telephone conference. And, until those are all set in place, we're not going to be able to move forward in those spaces as quickly. So, CI has been kind of an updating department over the last couple of years at Callagy. I took over almost a year ago at this point, and we're definitely seeing gains. We had a super strong January. February and March weren't as strong as we had hoped, but we are definitely ahead of the pace thus far during the year where we had hoped to be, as we're now about a third of the way through the year. So CI is open for business and looking good, and looking forward to getting back to normal, but we're still plugging along these days. So Mike, you want to jump in?
Yeah. All right. Hi, everybody. Again, my name is Michael Bittoni. I am one of Callagy's New York NoFault attorneys. In New York NoFault, there are two different forums where you can pursue a wrongful denial or underpayment. You can pursue them in court, or you can pursue them in arbitration. If you're not already familiar with the difference between these two forums, arbitration is an informal setting where a specially trained lawyer can issue legally binding decisions. This person is not a judge, but has many powers of a judge. Arbitration is proceeding without a hitch, and in fact, it's escalating in many ways. Everything is telephonic and electronic, and this has just gone so well. We're very optimistic that no-fault arbitrations can continue to be a source of revenue for providers during a time when patients aren't necessarily coming through the door and many elective procedures are prohibited. Courts are a different story. The New York courts are basically completely shut down except for certain kinds of emergency cases like child custody or issues where there's a potential for violence. The courts are starting to do some electronic and telephonic appearances, but currently these are limited to the kinds of essential cases that I mentioned earlier. And while I'm hopeful that the courts will eventually reopen electronically and telephonically for all kinds of cases, at this time, no-fault court cases are basically shut down, at least in the New York City courts. If you currently have cases in court and you were relying on those for revenue, I'm happy to have a discussion with you to try to figure out a possible solution to that. As I mentioned, arbitration is going great. So at least for now, arbitration is really the only forum for new New York no-fault cases. We're also doing lots of education for providers. Everybody's very interested in looking at backlogs right now. And in New York, there's a 6-year statute of limitations. Note that the fee schedule is very complicated. So even many providers that are already arbitrating or litigating their medical necessity denials may have a backlog of underpaid claims due to the complexity of the fee schedule. We see this in a high concentration in DME claims. Feel free to reach out to us about that. But bottom line,
Mike, can I ask you a quick question? I know you mentioned that the litigation is definitely on hold. Have you been able to have any discussions with adversaries or anything in terms of settlements? Are you able to do things sort of outside the court system at all? What are your thoughts on that?
Potentially. Some of the discussions that we're having are just starting, so I don't have any insight into how that's going to play out, but there's a situation here where the courts are shut down. Insurance carriers have these cases. Nobody really knows what to do because this is unprecedented, but arguably interest is continuing to accrue at the brutal rate of about 24% per year on these claims. We don't know how long this is going to last. So a crisis often creates opportunities, and we are in these discussions. I mentioned earlier that providers with court cases that they were counting on as a source of revenue can reach out to us. While I certainly don't have any clear idea about how these opportunities will play out, I am hopeful that this crisis will create opportunities to resolve cases in court that might otherwise have just stayed on the calendar for a long time.
Nice. And Raj, I know that Mike mentioned there's a 6-year statute of limitations in New York. Recently, there was a bit of a landmark decision in New Jersey on that front. Can you discuss that a little bit, maybe?
Sure. workers' comp litigation has sort of three parts to it. We have these two issues, the jurisdiction issue and the statute of limitations issue, and then we have the general trials and workers' compensation for medical provider claims. The statute of limitations issue was recently resolved by the court, and we were very much a part of that, in favor of medical provider holding that they have a 6-year statute to bring a medical provider complaint. And we have a great video on that issue, also about jurisdiction, that we shot about last week. So if you're interested in learning more about that, definitely check out that video. But essentially that decision solidified the 6-year statute. And just as Mike was saying, there's no better time right now, there's no better time than now to go through a 6-year backlog of claims. Reach out to us certainly to see where you kind of fall, what claims are eligible for resolution, where we can kind of help you out in bringing in that cash flow. But the statute of limitations case solidified the 6-year contract, the 6-year contract statute that applies to medical provider claims. And with respect to jurisdiction, we are very much part of that as well. We have 2 appeals pending, and that essentially has to do with, well, can the medical provider file a claim for reimbursement in New Jersey when there's some out-of-state ties having to do with the injured worker? So they might be coming from Pennsylvania, they might be coming from New York, but they get treatment in New Jersey, and the question is, well, can the court hear their claim, the medical provider's claim? So we have 2 appeals pending. One, we have a case where the injured worker was from Pennsylvania, and we have another one where the injured worker was from New York. So 2 different issues there as well, one having to do with subject matter jurisdiction and the other having to do with personal jurisdiction. But that briefing is closed. As James was mentioning, there's a bit of a delay right now in the court system as to the litigation calendars. So we expect oral arguments to be later on in the year after courts start to reopen again. But once again, a great time to do the 6-year review for all healthcare recovery departments, New York, PIP, CI, as well as workers' compensation. But I do want to pull you guys in on this last point, and I think we are all in agreement that it's about time that courts embraced technology. And
yeah, absolutely.
Hoping that although this is a very tragic situation for many, this COVID-19 poses a lot of challenges in many different ways, having to do with employment and people's health as well. There is also no better time to innovate, and that also goes to the court system. We've been waiting for them to allow virtual hearings for a long time, and we're hoping that some of the things that have changed in the court system kind of stick. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I'm hugely in favor of that. First, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't say this is a terrible crisis that's affecting, millions and millions of people, people that are sick, people that are dying, family members. It's obviously causing a devastating economic effect that cannot be ignored. So obviously, our thoughts and prayers are with everybody, with the frontline, the medical workers, those people that are working in hospitals and long-term care facilities, and even the garbage men they're working on the streets, people working at food stores and cashiers and everything. So a heartfelt thank you to everyone. In terms of the focus of this particular webinar, the court system and our 3 departments. I'm hopeful that this terrible crisis will force some evolution in the court systems, which have been notoriously slow to innovate. Obviously there's a lot of unemployment right now. I was reading a story earlier today about how New Jersey's unemployment system is based on, I think it's called COBOL, which is some like 60-year-old programming language. And it's these giant banks of computers from like the 1950s that have been processing unemployment benefits. So, obviously I hope that they get that updated, and probably my laptop has more computing power than all of those things. So I'm hopeful that the courts will evolve for the better. Lawyers often bill for travel, so clients are getting billed for, a Philadelphia lawyer making an appearance in North Jersey and, 4.5 hours that's round trip for something that may only take 15 minutes. I had an argument like that, last year before the courts closed. And it was pretty much an open and shut case. The judge had decided on the papers. He took the bench, issued his decision, and my adversary got back in the car with his client for another 2 hours. So, that easily could have been done telephonically or via Zoom and like that. And it's really just the courts evolving, and hopefully the stuff, sticks, or the parties can agree, or that kind of thing moving forward as to what kind of appearances are necessary.
Yeah, James, I strongly agree, and hope the New York court systems also increase their use of technology to make things more efficient now and in the future. The devastation of COVID is unprecedented in our lifetimes in many ways.
You live in New York, right, Mike?
Yeah, New York City. Yeah. So because the courts are closed only for essential, except for only essential cases, if somebody's landlord wants to try to evict them, what do? There isn't really a clear answer to that right now that I'm aware of. And opening the courts with technology can potentially allow, for example, tenants' attorneys to provide services that right now aren't available. And in the NoFault community, everything has been done on paper for a long time. And because there's a high volume of cases, attorneys show up with entire suitcases filled with paper printed, thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of paper every single day. That is extremely heavy, burdensome, it's expensive. And James, like you mentioned, sometimes a case might only require 10 minutes of consultation with a court attorney. But everybody has to travel to court, wait in line to get heard, and then travel back to the office, and the attorney clock is running that entire time. So I'm hopeful that electronic filing will reduce the burdens of using paper, and that telephonic and electronic appearances will reduce the number of billable hours so that legal services can become more efficient.
Are you guys also seeing that courts are more inclined to accept affidavits instead of testimony? Is that sort of relevant in your respective areas as well?
I haven't come across that, to be honest. Most of the cases that I'm involved in have just been entirely delayed. So we haven't gotten to the point where, some portion of the case is moving forward, but a witness is unavailable because of this. Right. We certainly do, a lot of the stuff that we do is on the papers anyway. So we frequently will submit a certification from a client, occasionally because there's some tight timelines in commercial insurance, was the appeal within 90 days, or for the surprise bill, was it within 30 days of the EOB? We will submit certifications from clients stating, this is the date my office received this document, so when we appealed it on such and such a date, it was timely. So that is something that's definitely in our bag of tricks in terms of using it.
In NoFault, there was no clear answer to that question because NoFault is shut down completely in court. In arbitration, the rules of evidence are relaxed. So most cases are handled exclusively with documents and written statements for witnesses rather than through personal appearances of witnesses. On the occasional case where a witness appearance was required, it used to be the case that they had to appear in person. Many arbitrators required that. At this point, I think it's likely that any case requiring a personal appearance will either be through a telephonic appearance, so the witness doesn't actually need to travel to the hearing location, or arbitrators may just choose to adjourn the case until things return to normal. But there is potentially the opportunity for witnesses and treating physicians to appear by phone without having to travel to the hearing location.
Yeah, I mean, it seems that innovation is key for lawyers to survive this sort of environment, but also there's a hope with all of us that the court system evolves with the time, and now they're being forced to take, embrace technology. We're hoping that it sticks. Beyond this, what are you guys doing to stay sane? I know, Mike, you're a bit of an artist. James, how are you staying sane in all of this? I'll do a quick share. I'm trying to be a better cook. I was talking to James before. We all had a little conference call before this webinar, and I thought that maybe I'll learn one thing that is practical, something that I will sort of take with me even after all of this passes. And I thought cooking might be one of those things, one of those hobbies. So every Sunday, I think this is more so important because we're rationing our meals. We're making sure that we're not going out as much, especially to grocery stores where there are a lot of folks. So I think on Sundays, I'm sort of rationing my food for the week, and then also meal planning, meal prepping, making large bulks of meals and then kind of using them throughout the week, because me and James were discussing, you got to stay in a routine. You have to have some sort of a schedule can get through this. Otherwise, all the days seem like faded together. All the hours, you can't tell when it's morning, when it's night. So I think staying on a schedule is sort of key. And that's sort of what's helping me get through this, is sort of my Sunday cooking. What about you guys?
Well, what kind of have you tried any new recipes, or like what's something that you've learned in terms of cooking?
So I can't tell you how many different ways I can make salmon now. That's for sure. But I'm trying different recipes. So I'm trying some Italian food. I'm trying some Indian food. I'm trying some Mediterranean food. I'm trying to mix it up every week. I'll make a couple of dishes on a Sunday, and then kind of do better next week, and then do better next week. So far, I've been all right. But there is a learning curve to this, and we're slowly getting there.
Nice.
Thankfully, I can eat everything that I cook, but there's certainly room for improvement.
Nice. That's a good start. At least you eat it all, and then try to flavor it better or whatever the next week. So, so I'm first of all lucky enough to be married to someone who's an excellent cook already. So that's luckily not a skill set that I need to.
Nice.
Like Raj was saying, the thing I'm trying to do, I guess, is to just keep as much of a quote unquote normal routine as possible. I'm still setting an alarm and getting up at the same time. I'm trying to work out in the morning. I've added a few things because I used to go to the gym a couple times a week, and now I can't do that. So I've looked on a bunch of websites and figured out how you can sort of translate the things you do at the gym into doing that at home. Actually, I was an avid racquetball player, believe it or not. So I play that a couple of times a week. My
James
wife
is also a heck of a diver, by the way.
Yeah, scuba diving too. So as long as fish can't COVID-19, maybe over the summer we'll go out and do some dives.
Absolutely.
So my wife bought me a racquetball thing. It's actually like a tennis rebounder. So it's a tennis ball on a long elastic string. So I can hit it in my driveway and it kind of comes back to me. So I'm keeping a little bit of my hand-eye coordination going, and it's nice to be outside. But I'm just trying to kind of keep things as normal as possible, shave and shower, brush my teeth every day, get dressed, go downstairs to my office and be on our company conference call, and then, put in a full day's work to keep myself sane and just trying to keep things as even keeled and as similar to the way they were before as I can. So that's sort of been my trick.
So I've been spending some of my time doing some drawing, which is great. I didn't learn to draw growing up, and I used to think I just couldn't do it. I thought I was a person who was born without the ability to draw. Then a friend of mine who's a designer recommended this book called, let me show you the cover, Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain, by this person called, All right, well, Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain by an artist called Betty Edwards. I don't know if you can, there we go.
Yeah, there you go.
You can see it there. And it gives you some core drawing skills, but also spends a lot of time just talking you out of a lifetime of believing that you can't draw.
I definitely, I that belief as well.
Yeah.
I can't draw to save my life.
So the point that Betty Edwards makes is that...
Wait, James, you didn't make the Basquiat behind you?
Oh yeah, that over my shoulder there. I think it's my 4-year-old drew that, and they might already be more talented than I am. So I think that's the limit of my ability.
Betty Edwards makes the point that drawing is like reading. You need a good teacher, but anyone can learn to do it. And there's a lot of material to use that analogy to talk you out of the belief that you can't do it. Because if you change your belief that you can't do it, then you go through the exercises and you find out that you can. And let me show you my my before and after here.
Wow.
Here's my before and after.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Right?
Wow, that's incredible.
So I'm certainly not going to be exhibiting in any galleries at any point, but now I have the ability to draw something, and it looks like, my drawing looks like the actual object that it is, or the person that it is. So that's pretty cool. If you Google drawing on the right side of the brain before and after photos, almost everybody who goes through the book has results like that. So it's dramatic. The book takes about 40 to 50 hours of work. So you can do, 2 hours a week, you can finish it in a couple of months. It changed the way I perceive myself and challenged my understanding of what my own limits are. Pretty great.
Yeah, I think that's something that I've learned in the past years. Mike and I actually did a year-long pull-up competition last year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things where if you spend a couple of minutes a day, or a couple of hours a week even, if you just break it down into small chunks but constantly repeat it and don't give up, you're going to get incredibly, immensely better at something.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, drawing is good for you. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing, guys. This was awesome. We will, I guess, we're going to do this. We're going to try to do this more often and check in with our clients, let everybody know what we're up to. But other than that, we hope that everyone stays safe, stays healthy, practices social distancing. And before you know it, we're going to be out of this together.
Yep, absolutely. This too shall pass. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and obviously we're not at our first step. Hopefully we're somewhere in the middle.
Right.
But we got to just keep walking, and eventually we'll get where we need to be.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Have a
See you
great
next
day.
time.
Have a good weekend.